Here we are. Welcome, Tine Swyngedouw. Would you like to introduce yourself?
My name is Tine Swyngedouw, and I'm a clinical psychologist and an experiential psychotherapist. I have a private practice in Leuven, in Belgium. And, I've been studying psychology and psychotherapy at the University of Leuven. And that's where I first learned focusing in my training as a therapist. I had this training with Mia Leuven, and I had my individual psychotherapy with Frans de Pestelen, who is a psychiatrist and experiential therapist also. And he said to go to the workshops of Anne Weiser Cornell in The Hague, in the Netherlands. And then in 95, Mia Leuven connected me with Chicago, and where the International Focusing Institute was. Before it was in New York.
Yes.
95, it was still in Chicago last year. And there I went to study with Jean Gentlin and with Janet Klein and Mary Maguire and Riva Bernstein.
Oh, and how long were you there in Chicago?
It was a certification week long. So we were there with people from all over the world. And we had an intensive week with the 4 trainers.
Wow. Yeah, was that amazing?
Absolutely. I'm very happy that I did that. And I find it, of course, it's a big investment. But I really think, for me, it really was an eye-opener to see all these different people who had their own way of doing focusing and focusing-oriented therapy. And to really feel that it was okay to find my own way of doing things, that there was not one right way to do it. I had this, I had a bit an image of, you have the way of Mia Leuven, who did it with the 6 steps of Jean. And then you have the way of Anne Weiser Cornell, who does in relationship focusing. And I thought that's it. But there I learned there is much more.
There are many more.
And find your own way.
Yeah, and Gentlin encouraged that too, right?
Yes, absolutely. It starts in 1990 when I started studying with Mia Leuven. And then in 95, I went to Chicago. And I've been going to international workshops and conferences ever since. And of course, now we have online. So I find that really a treasure that we can connect like this and follow courses all over the world. Last year, I wrote a book on focusing, and one of the things I did is bringing together 34 exercises that I really like from all over the world. And I translated it in Dutch because my book is in Dutch, of course. I'm living in the Flemish part of Belgium. And that really feels like a good thing to bring together all these different exercises.
Was it for yourself too? Like, to gather?
Well, I'm doing a lot of workshops for people in Dutch, online and live. And I'm not that good in doing the same thing twice. I had this large amount of workshops. Some of them I only did once. And I found it really a pity that all those exercises were laying there, translated in Dutch, but only a few people who were in the workshop experienced it. So I wanted to find a way to bring it into the world and share it with people. And now I'm working on a new project. I'm also working with people who have cancer and their relatives and caregivers. And I want to collect exercises or knowledge we have on working with focusing and in oncology. I developed my own way of working in oncology, and I call it the experiential 4-leaf clover. And
the experiential 4-leaf clover.
yes, so I'm working with the 4 verbs. The way I explain focusing is through 4 verbs: pausing, and then experiencing, and acknowledging, and symbolizing. And at the same time, it's about the 4 basic dimensions of existence. So the biological, and the psychological, and the social, and the existential level. So I'm bringing that together in that image. I found that image in when I was doing a Thinking at the Edge course. Felt like, oh yes, this is to hold on to this whole world of ideas. And because it's a living image, it's something, it's interacting with environment, and it is a living thing itself. I really liked it.
What do you feel is unique or special to you about FOT?
What comes for me as really special is that it gives your client this inner sensing, this inner acts. For whatever thing your client is coming to this therapy with, whatever question, this is a gift you give to your client. The learning of this inner sensing, felt sensing, this inner act. So they have an inner compass for whatever happens in life after that, or whatever thing, whatever happens and comes in their lives. And that's for me very special, because it's something you can use it in your whole life. It's not only an instrument for when you're in therapy. And it's for everybody. You're not depending on a therapist. You don't have to come back for everything that's happening. You have this inner sensing, and you can process on your own. Not everything, of course, but a lot of things you can process on your own.
What's the essence then of focusing oriented therapy for you?
The essence of focusing oriented therapy, it's a huge question. It's big. And some things that come to me is, for me, it's not that we find a marker and then start the 6 steps. For me, it's a continuous process where the therapist is directed towards the experiential level of the client. And what you want to do is to make an open space, free space, so this experiencing of your client can come and tell its story. So that's for me very important, or that a therapist supports this experiential process of the client. Another thing I'm thinking about when I'm thinking of the essence is that both the client and the therapist are guided by the felt sense. So I can offer, as a therapist, I can offer a question or a suggestion to my client, but it's the client who offers it to his or her felt sense. It's the felt sense who will answer. So we don't have to know everything, but we just have to use this inner touchstone for whatever the client or the therapist is saying. That's there, the answer comes from there. If it ends with a question, as a therapist, I do not have to have the answers. I can do a suggestion and the client will notice in his or her body, if it fits or not. So it gives me space to try something. So that's for me very important, that it's all about this inner relationship of the client. How is the client with his or her experiencing? And is there a going back and forth between the felt sense and symbols that come from there? And we want to be there in a way that supports this. So there is, of course, the support of the therapist-client relationship. And that's another important aspect, that this process needs safety. It needs a safe inner relationship from the client with his or her felt sense, but it also needs a safe relationship between the therapist and the client. As a therapist, I'm felt sensing about my relationship with my client and the relationship of the client with his or her felt sense. And if I notice that something is off in that relation or in one of those relationships, then that comes first. I have to make sure that there is safety on those levels. So that's how I use my own felt sensing during therapy. That's one way, of course. There are different ways. Another way is I learned from Janet Klein and Mary McGuire in interactive focusing. We have the double empathic moment, where after you have been reflecting what the other person is saying, you come to a point where, as a listener, you try to feel the essence of the whole story. And you put yourself in the shoes of the other one, and you try to give an image about this essence. And that too is very helpful in therapy. So you can have deep empathic reflections from that place, from your own felt sense. The whole story the client has just told you. And you offer it, and the client offers it inside and sees what fits, what doesn't. And that way you show this process of felt sensing and symbolizing your felt sense and offering it to the client. You're a bit an example of what you hope that the client will do also for. So that are some parts that for me are essential in focusing oriented therapy, this continuous working with the experiential process of the client, where you have the inner relationship of the client, but also the inner relationship of the therapist and the relationship between the client and the therapist. And then the following of the felt sense and the safety of the relationships.
What do you bring to it as you?
I have this way of working with my 4 verbs. That's for me very helpful if I have to train therapists. I noticed that it's also helpful for them to learn to look at the process of a client and to see what is the missing step, what makes that focusing is not yet happening in this client. What is needed now? Is there a problem with pausing? Is he talking? Is he going too fast? Is it more not going inside, not going to this experiential level, not touching inside the body, how it really carries this situation? Is it that kind of invitations I need to give more, make that step more explicit for this client at this point? Or is it more a problem of acknowledging? Is it a client that is sensing, oh, there's something there, and then dismiss it? And do I have to help the client with staying with that point and acknowledging the tears and also the reaction to the tears, that it's not allowed apparently to cry? So is there help necessary? And then the symbolizing, is there, for some people it doesn't come in words, and then I'm trying to find ways to make the implicit explicit. So I also have crayons, and I invite people to, if there is a movement or a color, or for some people it's music.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be words. I help them to find symbols, or and sometimes symbols are there, but the difficulty is saying them out loud. So then if I notice there is a word but I cannot say it, I will not push on that. I'll give them pen and paper and say, well, you might want to write it down for yourself. You don't have to tell me. So just to really look for what's the next step that is possible for this client now to help this focusing process. So that's one thing, my 4 verbs. And then of course my experiential 4-leaf clover, where it's not that I'm not going to say how are you in your biological dimension or psychological or social or existential. It's not a protocol. We don't have to talk about these 4 things. But it helps me listening to what people are saying and noticing, oh, that's a theme for them, and that's where they are working, where they are stuck. It makes me more sensitive for these themes, and so I can invite it, and we can explore together the longings and the fears in that theme, for example. It's working with in an experiential way with these 4 themes, and to explore it, especially in oncology, what is the impact of the cancer on those different dimensions. I also have a group where we work, but there we do work with, each evening has its own team, and we work, we do exercises and share what comes. So I have a group with people who have cancer, and I have a group with people who are living in the same house as a person who has cancer. So who are really, really close family members. Your body, but also the bodies of the people around you, your environment, nature. That's all biological.
That's all,
Yes, and then the social is your relationships with other people, but also your culture, the social class you're coming from. So your space, your place in society, more that kind of things. And then you have the personal or psychological, that's your own inner world, and also your most close, your closest intimate relationships. And then you have the spiritual or philosophical level, that's about ideas and values, your meanings, your view of the world and of life. And
that's the existential.
Yes, the existential givens, that meaninglessness, that kind of themes. These 4 dimensions, existential philosophers have written about that. So that's not new, that's not mine.
Mhm.
That didn't say
Yeah.
that. But what I do is working with it experientially. So to make sure that what comes is not put on a person, but that it comes from inside. That's for me very important, that I don't impose something on my clients, but that
Yeah.
it comes from inside my client. And there is no right or wrong way, that it's whether
Yeah.
or not it comes from inside, whether or not it is connected to your experiential world, inner world. And I'm keeping those themes in the back of my head, and at the same time I'm looking at the experiential process of my client, and that's
Mhm.
what helps me um, to know where I am and what I'm doing during a session. When
Mhm.
I work with somebody with cancer, I'm having this in the back of my head, and
Mm.
I can rest in that, and I
Yeah.
can be with a person, and yeah, it really it's helpful for me.
So maybe you really do need a place where you can go or recuperate a bit, or just to keep 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 it together or something.
Yes,
In a way,
it
yeah.
it feels like sometimes it can be overwhelming,
Mm.
and want to be able to do something, but you can't do anything because it is what it is.
Yeah.
And then it feels good that you have these anchors,
Yes.
that you know, okay, but these are themes we can talk about, and we can explore this, and we can really go deep into that. And we have our focusing process to be there with these teams. We don't have to push it away. We don't have to completely be overwhelmed. So it gives a safety.
Yes. And maybe also for the client too.
Yeah, I think the client notices that I'm contain it. That's it. These anchors help me to contain
Ah.
what's happening in therapy, even
Mm.
if it's really hard, even
Yeah.
if people have really difficult issues. I can stay with them, and they notice that, and that's helpful. They can stay with themselves when they feel that somebody stays with them. What I do sometimes is, if a client wants to know more about, of course, I have a website, I have this book, so they know that I'm doing
Mhm.
something called focusing.
Yeah.
And sometimes they want to know more about it. And then I
Mm.
do say, well, maybe you can do a training in focusing. And
Mm.
so we have different focusing trainers in Belgium. Um, and then they can go there. But I
Yeah.
don't take them in my own groups. I
Mhm.
choose whether
Yeah.
when I'm the focusing trainer, I'm not a focusing therapist. So if I'm doing therapy with somebody, then I ask them to go to somebody else if they want to do the training.
Do clients come to you because you are a focusing therapist or
Yes,
okay, yeah.
yes. I noticed that
Mhm.
some people are really coming for that because they feel they need that,
Mhm.
and their how do you call that? Their doctor
Mhm.
um, says, "Oh, but you have to go there." But of course, it's not always like that. Sometimes it's more about the themes. I'm working a lot with trauma and a lot with cancer. So
Yes.
um, people
Yeah.
get referred for that too. When I think of an example, I think of an example of this inner act and this inner compass. And in oncology, other people start saying how you should live your life and how you have to deal with your cancer. For me, it's very important. Often the oncologist also, or the doctor sends people to the psychologist because they notice there's something wrong, and then they think the psychologist will say how they have to cope with this cancer. But I cannot say how you have to cope. I can only be with you and explore together what is the right way for you to deal with this situation.
Yes.
So, and then I noticed that some people, they stop working and they if they have a good time, good weeks, they do travel, they want to see the world, they want to do things, they want to see people. And another one, if he has a good day, he goes to work. For me, it's very important that this inner touchstone can say how I want to live my life, and not the external world that says, oh, that's a bad thing. You have to deal with that like this and this and this.
Yes.
So I really want people to feel this freedom to go inside and check there. What is my way of living, even in these circumstances that there is cancer, for example? And you cannot predict that. To let people act from inside and be behind the steering wheel of their lives, whenever and wherever it is possible. And I really find it an honor to be in this process with people and help them to find their own way of living.
Thank you
You're welcome.
so much. I really enjoyed this.